Bom dia and good morning, live from Rio de Janeiro. Welcome to Festival of the Diaspora. I am Sabrina Lamb, your moderator, and today, this morning, we are going to focus on Black economic sovereignty. So, as I said, I am Sabrina Lamb. I'm the founder and CEO of Wakeza, which means save and invest in Swahili. We provide family financial education for Black immigrants and those from the African diaspora residing in the United States in multiple languages and access to ethical, holistic financial services that celebrate their unique cultures. I'm also the founder and CEO of the long-standing nonprofit called World of Money, the leading provider of immersive financial education for children ages 7 to 18 in the United States and 4 African countries. We partner with schools, cities, parents, youth organizations, et cetera, et cetera. So I am excited to be here today. Let's begin by, and remember, you are the 5th panelist, so we are coming to you. So this is not just a one-way street in terms of your thoughts, your feedback, and please answer the polls in the chat. Introducing Miss Bernie Lawrence Watkins, Esquire. With over 20 years of expertise in entertainment and corporate law, Bernie has negotiated deals for Grammy winners, major label execs, and top brands like McDonald's and Apple Music, securing millions in revenue. She's also a dedicated community advocate, co-founding Gather for Good in support of local nonprofits and volunteering her knowledge across various educational executives. Meet Oscar Decotelli, founder and CEO of DXA. Oscar is a finance visionary with over 25 years of experience revolutionizing private market investment. As the founder of DXA, Latin America's premier digital asset management firm, he's enabled wealth creation for investors with just $10,000, directing over $200 million into groundbreaking ventures and raising $1.5 billion globally. He's also a champion for diversity, notably as Brazil's first Black investment firm founder. Introducing Dr. Lakeisha Hallman, driven by the motto, support is a verb. Dr. Hallman uplifts Black entrepreneurs worldwide. She's generated $8.3 million for Black-owned businesses through initiatives such as the Village Market. She provides essential support, mentoring, and grants, earning recognition from Forbes and Essence while partnering with top brands. Meet Ashley D. Bell. He is the chairman of Redemption Holding Companies and the CEO of Ready Life. He's an innovative attorney and entrepreneur reshaping finance and media. Leading Ready Life, he is transforming home ownership by removing reliance on credit scores. He also co-founded Ready Entertainment with Dr. Bernice A. King. He champions social justice through film and TV, and he is the general counsel for the National Black Banker Foundation, advancing economic empowerment and inclusivity. Give a round of applause for our panel. Okay. So, Black economic sovereignty in a time in the future, it could be next week, we have achieved this thing, this reality, called sovereignty, a dominance over and power and control of our global economics. What does it look like for you personally? And what does it look like for the billions of us throughout the entire African diaspora? Let's start with you first, Oscar.
Well, first of all, I wish my mom was here to hear she talking to me like that, right? Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. And I live here in Rio, born and raised here, so it's amazing to have something such remarkable happening here in our city. And I think it's very interesting to have a position to talk about sovereignty. when we're always pushed aside along our lives, right? So I think what I've been seeing a lot is, even in my personal life, I think the story has always been of, I'm gonna work, get into a company, maybe I'll be the CEO of this company one day, work, and get better, maybe become a partner, especially in the financial markets, and then you find out you're never gonna be the CEO of this firm, right? Either you don't come from the right family, you don't have the right skin color, you don't have this, or different reasons. Then you do again, I'm gonna be the CEO now of this company. No, that's never gonna happen. So then you say, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take a step that people don't often take. I'm gonna start my own firm and see how that goes, right? And I think at the end of the day, resilience is part of our culture. You mentioned about being here in Brazil. Brazil, I don't know how many people know this, you probably heard on the other panels, we received 5 million enslaved Africans through the slave trades. About 54% of the population look like us. Less than 1% of people in power do look like us. There's a listed stock exchange, one of the strongest in the world. There's not a single CEO that's there. The only one that we had now is a CEO of Banco do Brasil, which is a black woman, amazing, great, but it's a political position, right? And sometimes we talk about tokenism and things like that, right? So I think when we talk about sovereignty, it's not here yet. And I think that we need to keep pushing. And at the end of the day, I work with money, right? I work with investments, very rich families around the world. We've invested close to $2 billion along my careers in Latin America, emerging markets. So very hard for you to be able to raise capital. So I know how it is to raise this capital, and it's very hard. But when we think about how much capital goes to black founders, black fund managers, and all of that, it's very, very minimum. And I think we need to keep on the resilience, but I think it's on stages and conversations like we're seeing here that we can actually change that, because we can all add a little bit to each other. So I was just in the Merrill's summit there and talking about P3, and I think about my investors would be amazed of potentially investing to, I don't know, real estate in the US where there's a public-private partnership and there's a black founder that's happening that. I don't think that that's something that's available to everyone. So I think the sovereignty is something that we need to push. We need to get there. In my personal story, it has been of resilience. It still is, still hard every day. There's a new challenge. It would just increase the challenges, right? But I think that with hearing you out and hearing this conversation here, I think things can get easier for us if we work together.
Just want to drill down just a little bit more. Your brilliant son is here, Guilherme.
Yeah.
What does it look like for him and his children's children's children?
I think it's going to get better and better along the years, especially because I think maybe I'll say in a different way. So my father, born in a favela, a slum, not very far from here, maybe about half an hour, 9 siblings. My grandfather and my grandmother didn't finish school, but they were able to put all the 9 kids to college here, public college, and all of that. And it was very hard for them. I don't know how they could do it. For me, it was easier. I studied in the best schools in the city because my dad could put us in a very good school. When I was 10 years old, they said, we got to take these kids to live in the United States so they can speak as an American, right? I lived there for a year, and that changed our lives when we came back. Been here since then. My sister's the same thing. So I think it's getting better and better as long as you don't stop. So you're only stuck if you stop. We got to keep on pushing.
Okay, Dr. Lakeisha?
So the question is, like, what do we see once we achieve
And what
sovereignty?
do you see for you?
Once achieved.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so we get to dream a little bit. To be sovereign is to be free and to self-govern. If I had an opportunity to dream of a newer existence, it would be a collective mindset on mobility, where there's an eradication of poverty and homelessness, where businesses are profitable and people are paid a livable wage, that people lived existence would feel differently, and that we will deconstruct this colonized mind that many of us exist in. So as a free people, we won't want the things that we have experienced, the governing, capitalism. We will fight to address these things. And so that takes decolonization. That takes deciding that to be disruptive, even in our own sense of comfort. And it requires us to do a good work. And I don't have a 15-year-old, but I do have a 15-year-old nephew. And what I imagine for my 15-year-old nephew in the sovereign space of being, that the stats that he reads now, the research that he reads now, that Black people and brown folks are deeply disenfranchised. And these are the things that we often quote when we get on these stages. My existence and hope for him is that there's new papers written about our prosperity and our collective prosperity. And that becomes the model for every generation moving forward.
Ashley D. Bell, Esquire, what is Black economic sovereignty? What will you and your darling, brilliant son experience?
You know, I think when you think about sovereignty, as it was said, it's about freedom. But at the end of the day, it's about self-determination, and it's going to require discipline. And when we talk about sovereignty, everybody here has got an obligation. We are not sovereign because we don't support each other enough. So at the root of this is, can we create an economic system by which we are not dependent on other communities for the value of our life? How can we be in a community where the choices that we make about how we feed our family, chase our dreams, and chase wealth is not dictated by the color of our skin, right? So how do you get there? That is sovereignty. You can do all those things and color doesn't matter, but that can't happen unless we build the infrastructure. So it's not gonna happen by time. Because time has shown us, especially in our country, that we were 0.8% of America's wealth the day we were free, and now we're 1.1% of America's wealth today. A lot of time has passed and nothing has changed. So the only way we can really change it is to create institutional change. Do we control the institutions that control what happens to us? And it starts with democracy and it starts with capitalism. Capitalism, we don't know if it works because we've never tried it. All right? We've only tried a version of counterfeit capitalism. Counterfeit capitalism is when you tell people it's a free economy, but you don't let people be free in that economy. Democracy says that everybody has a right to vote, but everybody doesn't have a right to vote. Did you really try democracy? So until you look at those two things and understand that the people who are suffering the most out of a counterfeit capitalist system and out of a false sense of democracy, until they truly can experience both, then there cannot be sovereignty.
Bernie Lawrence Watkins, Esquire.
What does Black economic sovereignty mean to me? As Ashley said a mouthful, we have to think about economic resources, our ability to obtain economic resources, our ability to invest freely, start our own businesses without feeling oppressed. I've been an entrepreneur for 23 years. I've only had a W-2 for probably 3 years. My last W-2 was in 2002. The act of being empowered and wanting to go against the grain, it takes a certain mindset. But it also takes community. We can't do anything by ourselves. We need to research. We need to find people who are like minds, and we have to be willing to build infrastructure and have an understanding of what it means to move ahead. That is extremely important for us as Black and colored people. If you think that you can do something on your own, it's not going to happen. Community engagement is very important. And we need to identify people who are in certain positions who can have the right conversations to bring about change, because that's what it's going to take. I didn't get to where I am by myself. It took talking to people. It took sitting with different banks. You know the saying, when one door closes, another door opens. So you have to take that initiative and be forceful, be focused, be resilient, but also be engaging in the things that you want to see for yourself. Vision is extremely important. Now, I have 2 sons. My oldest son works for me, and my youngest son plans on going to law school. So what does that look like? There's a possibility that my youngest son can take over my firm. And so that's legacy. It's about building an infrastructure for yourself. How do you see yourself in terms of growth and what it is that you are providing to the community? Because it's not just about you. It's about how you're serving others. And if you think that you're going to get ahead just serving yourself, it's not going to work. That's not sovereignty, because it involves the engagement of people and other people that look like you.
What historical or even current legislative policies exist here in Brazil or the United States that maybe were enacted 100 years ago, but still continue in a new form today that you would eradicate now, that you're aware of, maybe everyone in attendees or not? What specific policies that still live and breathe through the fabric of our countries today to keep us in the economic dark? Oscar.
So I think I can speak more about on the investment world, right? So which is the world that I'm more into it. There are a couple of legislations around emerging managers. Around, for instance, in the US, you had the whole Jobs Act to facilitate capital to smaller enterprises. But I still see that all the efforts that are coming towards emerging managers and capital from public pension funds, endowments, and all of that still is focused on the traditional managers having kind of a spin-off or something like that. Or if they are investing into black-owned firms, in my case, they're going to invest with Robert Smith. And they're going to say, oh, I got my black founder investment. So I think that we need to see a strong change on how capital is raised. I heard on the other panel about the P3, as I was mentioning, and the mayors that were there. And for international investors, where there's big bucks wanting to invest in the US, that have less of a prejudice mindset, those are the ones that we should be opening up. And as far as I know, some of the legislations in the US are still very much focused towards US investors coming into these partnerships. So I think opening up the mindset towards international investors is something very strong. I'll give you an example. When my firm started, we received a $50 million check from a German family. And they weren't Brazilians. I didn't get from a Brazilian family, just to give you an idea, because they would have the view of looking, oh, this is not the guy that we should be investing in. But it was a German family that started with $50 million investing with us. And I think that in the US, legislations around how can we attract international capital towards the communities is not going to have the same prejudice mindset of, we heard on the other panel, of white fears, right? So there's no fear. They want to see return. So if you're going to invest into, I think it was a fire station that was talking about, oh, this is the process. They're going to invest into a fire station and everything. Heck, I have a bunch of Brazilian families or Latino families or European families that would love to invest into that. So I think taking off those biases and change some of the legislations around to facilitate capital, in my view, is going to change the situation that everybody wants to build here.
Dr. Lakeisha?
Sure. So we need to eradicate inequitable lending practices, from home ownership to investment in businesses. That barrier is the reduction of upward mobility. In America, to generate wealth back in the day, you needed to, and still, you need to own property. You need to be able to afford a house. You need to be able to invest in a commercial property. You need to own land. If you're shut out of that market, then it puts a ceiling on where you can go. If a business owner I work with hundreds of business owners across America now. And when I ask them what is their top need, they often say, the first thing, I need money. And secondly, I need mentorship. What is happening now, even in philanthropy, we will invest in mentorship. We'll invest in a program. We're not really investing in funneling money to the businesses to be able to scale. If you can't scale, you can't hire. You won't be able to impact the community. So if there's something to deeply address inequitable lending practices across all sectors, and then there should be an allotment of money in every city in America that money is going to Black and brown folks through procurement. A great deal of money is left on the table every year due to these inequitable practices. And there's something I wanted to address in the last question. I do want us to be a self-sustaining people and build our own institutions. These things are very important, but if we build our own institutions with the same mindset of those who oppressed us, we get the same thing. So there has to be a sense of shared values. There has to be a sense of what is collective prosperity for all of us, because I don't want us to build what's there. I don't want us to be a free people and create the exact same systems, because the same stories, the same white papers, the same research will be done, but it will be inflicted on Black and brown people by Black and brown people.
Attorney Ashley?
I think the biggest threat continuously, especially since 1980, has been the advent of weaponizing data against marginalized communities. And we see it most significantly in the States through the credit scoring system. Credit scores are not non-government entities, but they're algorithms that tell a picture of financial health, supposedly, of the individual. So just to dig a little deeper on what she was saying, that is the asphalt that builds the red line around our community. It's the fact that you can look at an algorithm, and let's just say you believe this, and I know no one in this room believes this, but this is the financial structure we have. We got 3 companies that tell you whether or not you're worthy to own a home in America, right? Those 3 companies, every single one of them believe that 54% or higher of African Americans should not be trusted to own the home they live in. So how can we live in a system where an algorithm can say that half of Black people as a whole should not be trusted to own a home? On that merit alone, it should be eradicated. Because that same system where it says the majority says that we shouldn't be trusted to own a home is the same system that says we shouldn't be trusted when we're pulled over by the police. The same system that says when our children sit in the front row in our class, they should not be trusted. This is a system that perpetuates a negativity about us. So if you want to eradicate this, you have to challenge it at its core and say, if you live in a world where data is prevalent and you can find out everything about me, how in the world can you look at this 3 digits that, first off, don't calculate anything that I actually need, okay? If you're paying rent in here anywhere, how can your rent payment can be $2,000 US? How could that not be the most primary indicator for you to get a mortgage? Why are they looking at your Discover card payment from 4 vacations ago that you didn't pay down, or some accident you happened? When you have a system like that, there are more African Americans paying more per square foot to rent than to own. That is intentional. So as long as somebody is coming and talking to you about getting elected to office, and they're saying, I'm promoting economic, mobility, and I want to do, if they're not telling you they're eradicating this system or creating a better way for us to use data, then they're perpetuating the same thing she just said, that you're perpetuating the system that is actually strangling us economically. So eradicate the credit scores first off. That begins to erase the red lines, and then understand that there's a better way to underwrite Black people. There's a better way. You have so many African Americans that are cash rich and credit poor. Got all the cash, but their credit ain't right. And think about all the ramifications that happens when it comes to owning a home and passing down generational wealth. We are losing billions of dollars from passing down to the next generation because of 3 digits. We got to get rid of it.
Attorney Bernie.
I think what's really important is understanding that we live in a world where there's unconscious bias. And as a result of that...
Is it unconscious? Is it really unconscious?
Well, I would say...
Come on, Bernie.
Well, it's a little bit of both. Because the thing is, if you haven't been exposed You just don't know. When you look on a world view, people who have never been exposed to black people, right? They haven't had direct interactions. They just see what they see on television or in the movies. There's a stereotype there, right? So when you look at people who are, or these companies, they're basing their ability to deal with others based on what they've seen on television or in the movies. They've never actually dealt with a person that didn't look like them. That's a problem. So it's really, how do we build a community that is a rainbow community, where they're more inclusive of black people? And you have to be intentional about who you're bringing in. They have to want to bring in other people and have they gotta have those hard conversations. And you gotta have companies that have the ability to hire black people, brown people, and just are willing to want to be an equitable system. You know, and we talked yesterday at one of the panels, we were talking about you can't have diversity, equity, you can't have diversity and inclusion without equity. You know, everything, the resources have to be equitable. And that is a problem in our society, where we are not being intentional about how we move, because it's like it's more of an individual mindset. If I got it, I don't care about the next man. But we as black people have to be very intentional about reaching back and pulling in others that we know that are qualified. And that's why our HBCUs are extremely important. I'm a strong proponent of HBCUs, because there's a lot of talent that's coming out of those schools. And we need to reach back and bring them into these companies. And they need to be taught. They need to be mentored. They need to be coached. So that's what I see.
Yeah, I'm a proud graduate of Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. Yes. And have knocked on doors to corporations, because I have on my desk resumes for students that have 4.0 GPAs, just brilliant, with no place to go. They've done everything they can. And these so-called pipelines, the doors are really closed. But in answer to my own question, in terms of historic issues that continue to strangle the African diaspora, when I had the brainstorm for Wakeza, I was in Nairobi, Kenya. And was speaking with my friends there, and they talked about their inability to invest in their own publicly traded companies, as well as the US. I don't think that anyone should be denied access to ethical, just financial services just because you have a certain citizenship or you have a certain economic status. And that's what, in regulatory issues, for example, if you are from Barbados, you can't invest in the US. I mean, I understand in terms of regulatory, and you got to watch who you're doing business with and everything, but there's a lot of corruption in the West as well. But the Caribbean nations and people that have Caribbean citizenship, for example, do not have access. And then also, if you are an American citizen and you do live in a bank, so-called financial desert or bank desert, you're specifically targeted with predatory so-called services. Payday lenders, check cashing, rent-a-centers, title loans, specifically targeting these communities. And that's what Wakeza in World of Money, I teach children, I want to put all those so-called predators out of business. Because just because you don't have whatever that number is, should not mean that that is the only financial service that you should have access to. So, I want to ask you in terms of strategies, how are you in your work interrupting what we're talking about? Yeah.
Can I get into that?
Yes.
All right. So I want to touch into one point that Dr. Lakeisha said. She said that wealth has been created through ownership of property, right? And that's true along the decades. However, there has not been truth in the last decades, because wealth has been created more and more through entrepreneurship in the last decades. So it's almost like, yeah, let's go and let them have properties, but let's not have them have big companies. Look at the S&P today. So the largest companies in the S&P, they're all tech-driven or they're healthcare-driven, right? So what I'm saying is the following. The young people we should be pushing them to be entrepreneurs. Those are the billionaires of the future. In order to have significant property investment, you have to help them to build 5 million, 10 million, 20 million type of assets in property, which in the US nowadays is very hard to do. But if you are able to provide them maybe $500,000 to give a push into a business, and that business generates value. There's a big market in private equity and venture capital. If we just look from the 2000s up until today, the last 20 plus year, investments in private companies, private equity, venture capital, did about 4 times what the S&P did. So I think we need to try to, I don't know if you guys in English like give pearls to pigs. There's this saying, right? So if you're getting the worst piece of it, we got to go for the top. And I think what I'm trying to do is how can we provide capital to people that are going to have lots and lots of no's because of the bias. So I think when we are able to do that, we can create some interesting sparks. I can give an example. So here in LATAM, we had an effort from Google. Google created a Black Founders Initiative. Very interested to invest in Black-founded startups, and also some other big guys like Nubank and everything. So if you compile everything that they've invested into Black founders, okay, you'll get to about $2 million, all the investment they've done. Big guys and all of that, oh my gosh, we're going to change the world, and that's it, okay? And granted, the teams are there trying to make a difference, but the owners are still, okay, let's just give a little bit, saying that we're saying, some of them spend more money on the marketing, talking about this effort, than actually they're giving to entrepreneurs, okay? So we figured out, okay, you know what we need to do is that we need to create a framework where we can compile people to put money into it. We were able to create a kind of a co-invest for a specific company here, 2 Black founders, 2 brothers that started, and we were able to invest in just a single company about $5 million, just to give you an idea, here in Brazil. So this is a Brazilian company in Brazil. I don't see this happening in the US. I don't see it. When we see in the financial markets and capital going, I love the guys from Harlem Capital, for instance, which is kind of #1 guys, or 645 Ventures, for instance. But if you look at the amount of capital that they're actually receiving to invest, is minimum compared to the billions and billions that are happening there. So what I do think is that we need to start looking at the wealth creation of today and of the last 20 years, and it's going to be the next ones, is entrepreneurship. We have to push all the communities to entrepreneurship. So the mayors are here. If you want to do something, create an incubator process, or where people in your community, in your city, they can get either small checks or push that to entrepreneurship, because that's what creates the multiple of capital. Look what's worth Facebook nowadays. Look what Microsoft built today. They started in a garage or in somebody's dorm with 50,000.
I've already had this, I'm having these conversations ad nauseum with my elected officials, because in where I live in Harlem, the economic lights are off. And when I say, can we turn them back on, please? Can we have an economic Harlem Renaissance? Okay, they don't know what I'm talking about. So, but I'm going to keep at it. But absolutely, I love that. But you leaned over, Ashley. Attorney Ashley.
Dr. King and I have a different strategy in the sense that we're trying to talk about, what is the strategy to create this economic sovereignty? And it's really, for us, it's just been around just recognizing what can we do practically speaking right now with the quickest impact, right? And so when we think about it that way, we have this concept that exists globally, and in America has a very distinct taste. It's called white privilege. White privilege basically means you can do things other people can't do because you're white. You don't have to think about the things that you do and how they're happening because you're white. It's your obliviousness to how it happens. You just walk in, stuff happens. That is the white privilege. So we believe that you can commoditize it and you can buy it. You can commoditize it and you can buy it. What that means is not only focusing on startups, but buying white companies.
Buying what? Say that again. Buying what?
Buying white companies.
Okay.
We bought a bank in the whitest city, in the whitest state, in the whitest neighborhood possible. A white bank has completely different economics, has completely different police, because the regulators are the police. I represented half of the black banks in this country. I can guarantee you a bank's regulators and black and white are just like cops in different neighborhoods. Okay? Cops in different neighborhoods. When you're talking to a regulator in a neighborhood that's never had redlining, that's never had all these issues we're trying to figure out how to fix, and you go buy that bank, it's a whole different conversation when you're talking to people. So we buy this bank, we turn it over to black ownership, but you also all of a sudden have a platform by which to export opportunity back into the black community and create value because black people own it. You mentioned Robert Smith. He's one of my top investors in this bank. You're talking about the Earn Your Leisure guys. You got a whole network of black people from 70 to 30 that came in and said, this is the move we need to make because by buying this bank, we get that opportunity. The same thing for our entertainment company. What Bernie was really saying is that you can't leave out that narrative. Controlling the narrative affects everything. And that's what's important about her work with entertainment. Because the stereotypes that are created affect us economically. Okay? So when we went into Hollywood and we bought a white-owned film production company, now I can tell you the difference. Because I bought a white-owned film production company, I started off getting free rent housed inside of Disney. Our office was inside of Disney, animation building on the Burbank campus. There's no other way for me to get in than me buy that access. How many of us have people that have incredible content but nowhere to distribute it? So you're looking for podcasts, looking for YouTube. But if I buy a company that on its first day in business had a first look deal with Disney, meaning that Disney said, day one, I would like to get a first chance to buy everything you do. That is privilege. You can commoditize it. So when we talk about pooling our wealth is also gives us an opportunity to get outside of our comfort zones and don't be afraid. Look at our neighborhoods. When you mean the economic lights are off, how many other races of people come into our community and buy our businesses or take up our block? When you walk through a black community, how many of us actually own what we see entrepreneurially?
And where?
And where? So we have to go on economic offense. Yeah. We've been on defense for so long, trying to protect so little, and that little's getting smaller and smaller. It's time for us to go on their side of town, start buying up their businesses and exporting opportunity back to our folks.
And by the way, and we are coming to all of you and soon. So in Harlem, because we think about black neighborhoods or black communities, what does community mean to you economically? Because I don't see Harlem, for example, as a black community. I just see black folks living next to each other. Because a community has an economic power coming through it, not just place in the demographic of Harlem has flipped where the African Americans are no longer the majority there either. So what is community? Because I hear community, but there's no money, no economics coming through there and sustaining there, building there. So what does community mean to you? Bernie, start with you. Attorney Bernie.
When I think of community, I think about people who have the same mindset, who I can reach out to, and we can work together on one accord in an effort to touch, move, and inspire others. That's a community to me. Because through that community, we can effectively work together to network and strengthen our reach to other communities. Because we have to first start with who we know, and within those groups, who are of like minds. And based on the initiatives that you're looking to promote, who do you believe within that community that you can talk to that you can engage and will have that same mindset? And then collectively, you go out in an effort to touch, move, and inspire. I mean, that is the key. Because when people are engaged, they now want to champion your efforts. And that's extremely important. You need a team of people that are willing to work together to move the effort forward.
Thank you. Dr. Lakeisha?
Sure. I would like to address the first question too, around what we're doing. I'm a worker. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about all the inequities that we're presented with in community because I think it takes our spirit away. It keeps us fixated in a place, and it makes it hard for us to dream something differently. So I let the data sit over there, and then I just get to work. And so in 2016, I founded my organization, first organization, the Village Market. And I was seeing the data, Prosperity Now talked about how much money black businesses did not make, even while they were living in Atlanta, which is the black Mecca. And so I looked at that and I was like, okay, it just sounds like black businesses needed more customers. I built the Village Market, brought more customers to businesses. One of the businesses in the Village Market, before coming to us, she was doing like $60,000 a year. Within a year, she was at $500,000. She's open now, her first location. She's also in my retail store that I created to make sure that black brands were on the shelves at Ponce City Market in Atlanta, which is the second highest foot traffic place in the city of Atlanta. So it wasn't about, oh, we can't get the black businesses in Ponce. The job was just to go open a retail store, bring all the black people with me. It wasn't about, oh, it wasn't to me about, well, black businesses only make like $28,000 to $38,000 a year. Cool, I just need to get thousands of people to shop from black businesses. Then that number goes up. But what I require from the businesses though, individualistic millionaires create the same system. We talk to these businesses, we train these businesses on mindset, that there has to be a collective model of mobility. That when you make your million, how are you employing, how are you hiring people, and what is your social entrepreneurship focus in that? Because if not, the money stops at the millionaire. It doesn't flow to community. How we build economy in our community is by doing that. That if we're going to fund black businesses and brown businesses, if we're going to invest so we can own and buy back our blocks, then we have to make sure that the money is flowing to our schools, money is flowing to our after-school programs, that money is flowing to extracurriculars, and then we create a collective pot of funding, then where we can go and buy property together. Another thing that we did in action, Peter Street is one of the blackest communities in Atlanta. 3 friends of mine put our resources together and bought a commercial property. We didn't talk about it for a long time. We didn't say, well, nobody is going to lend to us. It didn't matter. What we said, I got this, you got that. Over a 2-hour dinner, we made a decision to buy our property, and none of us had ever done this before. I come from a mother with a GED. My father worked in factories for years. The most that they made in a single year was like $50,000, and to the factories that came in Mississippi, and they were able to make a little bit more. So I say all this to say, I don't come from a pedigree background of how to do this. What we come from is a sense of that this would not be our story, that we would not live in Atlanta and walk down the street and not own anything. So when we walk down Peter Street now, we point at the building that 3 black women decided to put our money together and bought. When I go to Ponce City Market now, I walk in a retail store proudly because 41 different black businesses are doing there. We are there, and we're a 7-figure store. When I look at the village that we built, we now have generated millions of dollars across the United States because I was not afraid or disenchanted by the numbers. To build our communities, we have to put those numbers down and decide that we rewrite our own narratives by our own action. It requires us to be collectively mobile. and to have a sense of shared values and inclusions that are defined by us, that the queer community is welcome, that the trans community is welcome, that the guy and the woman that was incarcerated was welcome, that the person who has the job of every single day making sure they're cleaning up our communities are welcome. Because if we create the same systems within, even if it's by Black and brown folks, where there's an ivory tower where people sit high and look low and the money never flows to the bottom, then we would not have a community, we would not have economic mobility, we would not be a sovereign people.
So we have the power. We have the power. We are that change. Yes.
Yeah, I also
Brent.
wanted to say that in order to maintain what we've earned, we have to think about estate planning. That's something that does not
Yes.
come up often enough. When you think about wealth, it's estate planning. And what is estate planning? Do we all have wills? Do we have a trust? Do we know what a trust is? You know, when you buy a house, you can actually buy a house in a trust. You know, and you have to understand the importance of what building wealth means and what investment means. Do you have a financial advisor? We have one in the room, Reggie, right here. You know, it's really important to put the right people in place when you're building a business, because a lot of us start businesses, but then it fails because we're spending the money as soon as we get it. So do we know financial literacy? Those things are extremely important in terms of obtaining wealth. We can't have wealth if we don't understand, if we're not educated about how to place our money. And it's all about leaving a legacy, right? And if we don't put the proper mechanisms in place, wealth is not even a subject.
Let's come to you. Questions? Yeah.
Mr. Bell, this question is for you. My name is Marcy, I have 3 kids, and I'm an entrepreneur in Pennsylvania. 30 years in marketing and media, 10 years on my own as an entrepreneur. As I was preparing in 2023 for the Small Business Administration's 8A program, it went away, and my heart was so broken. Mr. Bell, do you know if it's going to be coming back, or, you know, I feel like Black economic sovereignty is under attack. How can we, you know, cross that threshold? Any insight?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And obviously, I spent some years at SBA. You know, government contracting as a whole has been such a good pathway for a lot of entrepreneurs to get going. There's, you know, and I'm kind of out of politics now, but I'm going to tell folks who talk to politicians all the time, there's some really big conversations you need to be having with people running for Congress right now. Because those are people who are really controlling this system. The first thing is, there's 2 8A systems. He's got to be real and just talk about it. You got one that's got a cap of like, what, $4 million you can get. And then you got another one for Alaskan Native corporations, and they can get like $40 million with no competition. That in itself needs to be a serious conversation. There's always been a third rail. You can't talk about that. But the reality is, when I hear stories like yours, and then I know that that system 20 years ago, it's a lot of Black people in Atlanta that made a lot of money off the 8A program, and it was 10 times bigger 2 generations ago. So all of this connects to the policy piece of this, is that when you're upset about a government program dwindling, and because the SBA, all they're going to do is execute the law that somebody else created, right? But when's the last time you went to a town hall meeting and somebody asked about SBA lending or government contracting? Think about how many issues we get distracted by that mean nothing. Like, we'll argue and get all upset and emotional, but her question is never answered. And she's the one that and the businesses need this. So somebody said in the last panel, it's a discipline we have to get when we talk to people about policy, of not getting distracted, because people like to bait and switch us all the time. They like to say, hey, look over here, this over here. And then she can't get the 8A contract. But we got all tied up over here. So I'm just saying, if we leave here with nothing else, next time you're in the room and there's a politician telling you about all the things and the platitudes, remember her. Okay? Remember her question. And when you remember what I said about What about credit scores? Why do we have these things the government doesn't even, that they're non-government organizations, private companies dictating the entire financial life of every single American, and we know the data says they're being discriminatory?
Reggie, would you stand up for a second? This is Reggie Cannell, and just turn around, because I just wanted to make it a public service announcement. GoFundMe is not an insurance policy, just so see him. And then for estate planning, go to wakiza.com and scroll down the team, and I have an amazing estate planner, because that needs to be improved in our community. I saw a hand over here. Yes.
Do I need to repeat
Any
it?
Black Chamber of Commerce? Like,
The concept of the Black Chamber of Commerce.
You know, look, as somebody, it's different in every city, right? Every state's different, but I will say this. I've always appreciated the fact that the Black Chambers of Commerce give us a center of gravity of which to gather, to share ideas, to pool our resources sometimes in the network. And if you're in the Black community where it's uplifting, it's great. Like, I just bought a white bank in Utah, and there's a Utah Black Chamber of Commerce. Did not know that. But I felt good when I saw it, because I didn't think there were that many Black people there. So when I showed up to town, and the first people that came and saw me was the Black Chamber of Commerce, I said, okay, what can I do? How can we work together? Now, I'll talk. So when I met the Black Chamber of Commerce as an entrepreneur in a new area, if you're talking about leaving your market, going to chase dollars and dreams somewhere else, the Black Chamber of Commerce can help you. Because if you go into a market and you don't know the politics, you don't know the culture, but you see the opportunity, a Black Chamber of Commerce leader can tell you, here are the other corporations that are friendly to us, that help us. Because if you go look at the donor list of who supports the Black Chamber of Commerce, you will see those corporations that have a consciousness towards and a bend towards helping minority businesses. They're an indicator. The strength of a Black Chamber of Commerce is an indicator of that community's willingness to support Black economics.
Questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Diana Buenaños. I'm from Colombia. And I want to leave you like going back. We don't have this Black business class. We're trying to build one, you know? How we can make this? There are plenty of Black entrepreneurs trying to thrive, to create these businesses, to make huge companies, to buy things. We cannot afford that in this moment. What is your advice from someone like me who is trying to build an empire to help others?
Diego, could you, and Lakeisha, yes.
All we are talking about here drives towards money at the end of the day. How can you raise capital, right? I think legislations and regulations have facilitated, from the crowdfunding platforms to all sorts of different ways to structure it. But where is the money, right? And I think that you can look me up. I'll talk to you, give you some advice. I know we have a little bit of time here, but I do believe that we need to push all the generations, everybody, to go be an entrepreneur, or how to get money. And I think to Ashley's point, we need to get into communities of power. We don't have power. If we build a community among ourselves, it's great, but it's like buying the white bank. So going to where the white capital is going in Colombia, I want to get into that. Is it accelerator? Is it a different way? So I'd be happy to help out on that. Okay.
Questions?
Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning. What a great panel. Very inspiring and very helpful. My name is Katrina. I'm from New York. And I'm just curious, Ashley, you kept a couple of mic dropping moments where you talked about the connection between policy and what Congress needs to do and how we need to agitate to make it happen. Can you, in an American context, kind of be more specific on how everyday people can do that, right? And the second was on an international level. Can you talk a little bit about that, the policy piece as it relates to changing the economic trajectory of our communities, because we're not monolithic.
Yeah, we're absolutely not monolithic, and thank you for that question. I'm gonna just say a hard truth and just, I mean, this is fam, this is what we're here for, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, the reality is that the legacy organizations that are empowered to advocate for us, let's question their usefulness. Let's just be real.
Question everything, yes.
But when you go to a legacy organization that is the first person that politicians go to when something happens to black people, but then you go to their gala and you look at the big board behind you of everybody that's sponsoring them, and this is everybody who's done something negative to us in the last 10 years, and you expect them to advocate against them?
Wave
when they
your
pay for your
handkerchiefs,
chicken to be on that
everybody.
table?
Wave.
All I'm
Okay.
saying is like, you got it. But the only reason that exists, the only reason every major legacy organization has these exact same organizations, and I won't name the bank, but every black person in here knows, can think of the top of the head, one bank that consistently screws us over and they're on everybody's backdrop at every gala telling you about economic empowerment at the same time.
You
while
mean
they're
it like has initials
disenfranchising you.
like what the F? Like,
I'm not even saying, I'm not gonna do good.
Okay.
But what I will say is that
I'm just asking.
when we talk about our other communities, and I won't name the other communities, but I tell you this, until we can fund ourselves, we cannot free ourselves. So until that backdrop looks like black businesses, that I'm investing in my own advocacy, how can you let somebody else invest in your advocacy and then think you're gonna get advocated for?
Okay, so the Grim Reapers over here. The Apollo Sandman came down. So tell everyone how you can be reached, what kind of collaborations. Please feel free to reach out to us. We're on the amazing app. Thank you so much for joining us. And part 2, 5 o'clock, wealth building panel, moderated by Reggie Canal. Thank you so much.